Hello and welcome to this special program to mark Nigeria's independence anniversary. I am Imonia Marire. Nigeria is 61 years of political independence. A multi-ethnic, multicultural, religiously diverse and culturally endowed territory, wedded together by the British colonialists in 1914 through an amalgamation. Since self-rule in 1960, the country has gone through varied motions of parliamentary civil rule, military dictatorships, and presidential democratic governance. But how has its socio-cultural, ethno-religious diversities and its economic endowments imparted its rather rancorous, self-serving, and sometimes disruptive politics and developmental trajectory? When the British colonialists handed over the administration of Nigeria on October 1, 1960, the new independent nation was considered by many to be relatively set and able to lead Africa and indeed the black race. The reasons were not far-fetched. Economically, Nigeria was an emerging force with agriculture as its mainstay. Nigeria was and is still not lacking in human resources. All these put together must have convinced the least of doubting Thomases that Nigeria will be a force to reckon with in no distant future. 61 years after, the supposed giant of Africa is still tottering. Many factors may be responsible for this state of affairs. The inconsistent political experiments, the fratricidal civil war, the faulty mechanism for the recruitment of leaders, and the lack of respect for one another have made nonsense of the high hopes for Nigeria. An August 2021 publication of the United States Institute of Peace aptly describes the situation in Nigeria, and I quote, "As Africa's most populous country, largest economy, and most notable democracy, Nigeria is a bellwether for the continent. A weakening economy, rising insecurity, and violent conflicts threaten progress made in its democratic development. Amid deepening distrust in government and institutions, Nigeria has significant work to do in improving national, state, and local security and governance ahead of national and state elections in 2023. End of quote. The events leading to the civil war between 1967 and 1970 further polarized the system with mutual distrust, insincerity, and injustice. A typical example is the contentious census figure that has always been produced by successive governments, which has to a large extent made national planning equally contentious and unproductive. The country's electoral process has also been tainted, battered, and has become a metaphor for failure and deceit. There is also the propensity of Nigerian leaders to be the architects of economic underdevelopment through corrupt practices, thereby failing in their responsibilities to instill in the people a hope for success and a belief in themselves. 61 years after independence, with 32 years of intermittent or fractured democratic practices, politics remains a highly divisive force among Nigerians, especially among the political elite. Even now, as Nigeria prepares for the next general election in 2023, the political space is being polluted with agitations and permutations as to which region or section of the country should be allocated the presidential slot. Issues around power rotation between the North and the South and zoning of other key party and elective offices are tearing political parties apart. even after 22 straight years of uninterrupted civil rule. The political parties, the politicians, and the institutions of state are yet to get right the precepts of constitutional democracy. Politics, it appears, is still dominated by primordial cleavages, with those involved looking out for their narrow interests and not the well-being of the greater majority. Politics is simply for them a special purpose vehicle for the capture of state power, its structures and resources for personal aggrandizement and not for the good or welfare of the citizens they profess to represent. Democracy in Nigeria seems to have failed to live up to its much touted reputation of a system of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It has and continues to serve the needs and interests of a select few. The consequence is that more and more people are losing confidence in the ability and the capacity of democracy and politics to meet their aspirations for social equity, security, and a good life. At 61, can Nigeria experience a turnaround as a nation? Where indeed does Nigeria head from its present situation? This is the crux of our discussion on the program today. And I'll be joined very shortly by three very eminent Nigerians: Professor Adeleji Nodu, the former member of the National Electoral Commission, and Professor Ihechukwu Madubike, former Minister of Education in Nigeria, and Prince Mona Audu, a politician. We will be joining them for more discussions right after this report put together by our correspondent, which of course will kickstart our discussion. Stay with us.
Nigeria has had a somewhat checkered history in her 6 decades of journey into nationhood. A history that seems to suggest that many of Nigeria's political crises have always been there right from independence and over the years have merely escalated. Yet, at the lowering of the Union Jack, the British flag in 1960, a new nation, Nigeria, was born, and it was amid great expectations that the country, given its human and natural endowments, will in no time emerge strongly and take its rightful place in the League of Nations.
We shall never impose ourselves upon any other country and shall treat every African territory, big or small, as our equal.
Barely 7 years after independence, Nigeria was at war with itself, a civil war that threatened the very foundation of its existence. Nigeria's journey into nationhood has no doubt been quite tortuous, and it seems that while those who took charge of the country at independence in 1960 had different ideas of what to do with the country, they did not know how to genuinely build a nation out of the multi-ethnic, cultural, and religious entity put together by the British colonial masters. The absence of a true national cohesion, a genuine Nigerian spirit that is blind to tribal and religious sentiments, a combination of poor leadership, consistent friction for power and control by the various contending forces in the country have led to a series of internal conflicts and have worked together to weaken the Nigerian state. Nigeria has been described as a country on its third missionary journey to a truly democratic nation. While it took a horrible civil war to restore the entity when it was broken, it took an equally brutal attempted coup to stitch it together when it was pronounced broken. Remarkably, Nigeria has managed to survive amid all the ups and downs, even though not in the real sense citizens would have wanted it, especially with increasing waves of agitations, insecurity in the form of insurgency in the north, banditry, and even calls for secession in some other parts of the country. 61 years on, Nigeria still bears the scars of flawed electoral process and a defective leadership recruitment process that has made it extremely difficult to fully harness its potentials. Yet all hope is not lost on Nigeria, and it will take concerted efforts by all to pull the country back from its current delicate edge.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We are joined now right here in the studio by Professor Ihechukwu Madubuike, former Minister of Education in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amarere. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Also joining us virtually via Zoom is Professor Adele Jinodu. Professor Jinodu is a former member of the National Electoral Commission when it was known as NEC. Thank you, Prof, for joining us.
It's a pleasure to join you, and happy anniversary to all Nigerians.
Happy anniversary, Prof. We're also joined by Prince Mona Audu. Prince Audu is a politician. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Independence Day. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Prince Audu, let's begin with you and begin this way. What are your thoughts of 61 years of Nigeria's nationhood? Nigeria's political independence. For you, how has the journey been?
Thank you very much. First of all, once again, happy independence.
Prince Audu, are you with us? Okay.
Independence Day to every Nigerian watching. I think, to be honest, the teenage years in terms of the Committee of Nations, you know. So if you look at it from that perspective, you can see that we do have some challenges, some teething issues, but I am proud of my country. I know that there are still a lot of things that we have to do to make sure that we improve collectively, but I think it begins with being patriotic, you know. A lot of us have lost a lot of faith in our country, and there are many issues right now, but I honestly believe that these issues are surface issues. And if we come together and act very patriotic and love our country, I think things will be better collectively. Our leaders are a reflection of the people. So if we complain about our leaders, then we should actually complain about ourselves. So if we honestly improve, because our leaders are not from space, our leaders are from here, they are Nigerians in this Nigerian system. So if we make a collective effort to improve ourselves, then I believe that our nation, our leadership, everything collectively will improve. But I'm a proud Nigerian. I love my country. I'll not trade my country for any other country in the world. And I do believe that if we work hard collectively, we can build the most beautiful, the most wonderful country in Africa, and then we take it from there.
Thank you. Professor Madubuike, yes. Every individual and every country, for that matter, has its ups and downs in the course of a period of time. In 61 years, Nigeria has had its challenges. But would you say that those challenges have overwhelmed our achievements, or vice versa?
Well, let me begin from the beginning, because I was born before Nigeria's independence. I was in the secondary school in 1960. And there was a lot of hope for the country. And even as students, we were excited about the possibility of running our own affairs. I was in faraway Gindiri, present-day Mangui local government in Plateau State, on what was called Man of War Bay course, a training for the future leaders of the country. We were selected from every region, 3 regions of the country, 12 from each region. That made us 36, with an addition of 12 cadets from the military school in Zaria. So we're all 48, gathered for training, for leadership. It was called leadership training. Before then, that training was conducted in Cameroon. Remember that the Cameroons exited from Nigeria in 1959. And so by 1960, it was no longer possible to go to the mountain in Cameroon to do that training. It involved obstacle training, history of Nigeria, how to be a leader, and other things. I was selected among those to run for independence celebration. We had a mini theater where questions about leadership were thrown to us. Incidentally, because I took part in this, one of our instructors was a South African. And I remember him asking me what I thought about South Africa, apartheid South Africa. And I told him I hope Nigeria will never get to that status. So we're prepared for independence, excited for independence. Even as a young man, you will know my age by then, 17. 78 years after, the promise of independence still remains a mirage. We can give the history of Nigeria. Hopes and promises betrayed. When we see the paper celebrations, television celebrations, fine. They are a metaphor of living in denial. These celebrations we see going on, these dances going on at the square, Unity Square. We need to face the reality. We need to face the reality. And the reality is that Nigeria, as modeled, was not made to succeed by those who brought us together and amalgamated us and wants us to forget the history of the past and how we come together. The day we begin to remember our sources, we will begin to earn our resources.
Professor Jinadu, let me take off from that point at which Professor Madubuike stopped, and to ask, how do you think the process of Nigeria's political independence in 1960 has impacted on the political experiences and the developmental trajectory that Nigeria has undergone these past 21 years?
Thank you for inviting me. And I think it is important, while we look back to 1960, to look out for the large picture, the large picture. I think it is a large picture that will tell us where we have come from, what we have been able to do, and what we need to do next. And in saying that, I think it's also important to realize that at this juncture in world history, democracies everywhere are embattled. There's what you call the perpetual crisis of democracy, because democracy offers you possibilities, and yet not all those possibilities can be fulfilled. So the challenge is what to do to achieve your unfulfilled possibilities. I think with that introductory remark, I would like to say that what we have achieved, particularly since 1999, is noteworthy. Noteworthy in the sense that we have had, since 1999, almost 20 years of uninterrupted civilian rule. I think we need to give ourselves kudos for that. Of course, there are problems, serious problems, but I think we also need to say that, at least looking back, for the first time in our political history, since independence, we have had over 20 years of uninterrupted civilian rule. Of course, there are problems, there are disappointments, but I think politics is very, very complex. And it is not an either-or thing. There are contradictions. You have those who want to move you back and those who want to move you forward, those who are against democracy and those who are for democracy. There's a constant struggle. And I think after that constant struggle, I think we've done fairly well in remaining not just under democratic rule, but also remaining as one country. There are problems, fundamental problems. Now, what are the problems? I think the basic problem is that we have not failed to manage our diversity in a democratic manner. And that failure to manage our diversity goes back is deep-rooted, right from the critical period between 1947 and 60, when we defined our federalism in ethnic terms and we mobilized ethnicity politically in a way that was anchored on mutual trust and lack of reciprocity between the major ethnic groups and the minority ethnic groups. That problem is still fundamental. And we have not been able to resolve that problem of how do we manage our diversity in a democratic manner that will not consume us. I think we've had a failure of leadership. Our leaders have disappointed us, and we are about to be consumed by ethnicity in a way that does not portend well for the future of the country. So we need to sit back and reflect on how, moving forward, we can manage our diversity in a way that we just do not privilege ethnicity over other identity ties that we have in the country.
Yes, Prof. Let me push that a little bit further. Well, since 1960, we have had about 32 years of democratic rule, off and on. You just spoke about between 1999 and now, almost 22 years or over 22 years of uninterrupted one. We had from 1960 to 1966, and then, of course, from 1979 to 1983, all put together about 32 or so years of democratic experiences. And there is a school of thought that thinks that perhaps with those 32 out of 61 years of nationhood, we ought to have gotten a few things right politically, especially with leadership recruitment. Where did we get it wrong?
I have said that we got it wrong as far back as 1947, when we defined regionalism as ethno-regionalism, that is regionalism anchored on giving ethnic majorities self-rule within their own homelands. And yet we know that each region was also a mini Nigeria. It has minority and majority ethnic rule. So political parties were founded on the basis of, they became clones of ethnic unions. And rather than having a national political party, which the NCNC at that time was aspiring to, the NCNC also became identified with a particular ethnic group. And that had implications. And what I'm saying is that we have not gone beyond that, because that ethnic factor was founded on lack of trust, lack of mutuality, lack of reciprocity among the political leadership, and also among Nigerians in terms of your gain is my loss. And I think once we have that kind of duality, then it becomes difficult to transform from a nation building project to a state formation project. So we have failed in our attempt. We have not succeeded in building a nation. In building a nation out of the various nationalities that we have. And that has also impacted our state formation process, because it has created problems of identity that we are all under within one country. But having said that, I think we must also give ourselves kudos that our founding nationalists also had this vision of what you call unity out of diversity. And I think that has also helped us in a way. And there was a time in this country, as the Honorable Minister was rightly saying, when there was a sense of Nigerianness. But the point I'm also making is that we have not gone beyond that ethnic foundation of seeing ourselves not just as Yorubas in competition with Igbos, or Yorubas in competition with Hausas, or Hausa in competition with Igbo, for political power, particularly at the federal level. And at the state level, you also had concerns about citizenship by ethnic minorities. Is this state for me? Is the Western region for me as a Midwesterner, for example? Is the Eastern region for me, am I a citizen of the Eastern region, given the fact that I'm an Ibibio or Efik? So I think we have that brickbat that of how do you reconcile being a Yoruba man or an Hausa man in Eastern region and being that you are wanted there. So we have not gone beyond that. And I think it's because there has been no lack of reciprocity and mutuality in this respect. And unfortunately, the political leadership throughout, I would say, since the 1940s, have not been able to create political parties that are national in scope. There was an attempt to do that, first under the Murtala Obasanjo regime, and later under IBB, by that you wanted to create national parties with national spread. But that has not also worked out, because what the political leaders have simply done is to reincarnate ethnicity within the political parties. So the question is, the northern region is producing the president for the past 4 or 5 years, for the past 8 years. Therefore, it is the turn of another region or another ethnic group to. So you have a situation whereby now North-South has now become divided into 6 geopolitical zones, so that you can have that. Oh, look, all the presidents from the old Western region have come from a particular part of the Western region, Ogun State. Therefore, if it is the son of the Southwest now, then it must not be the turn of Ogun State, it must be the son of another state in the Southwest. So you have that fractionalization going on. In the North now, where they say, well, it must now go to the Northeast, because nobody from the Northeast, if it's going to be the turn of the North, nobody from the Northeast has ever been president. So this fractionalization is just going on and on and on, and the political leaders cannot just manage that because they don't trust themselves. It is not now that zoning is problematic in Nigeria. I remember growing up, in King's College, in 79. The whole problem was between Shagari and Abiola. That there was an agreement that Shagari will only do one term, and then it will be the turn of Abiola to come. So whatever agreement have been signed have not been honored. There is no trust. So when you talk of this question of zoning, the trust, it depends on trust. If there is no trust, if there is no reciprocity, then you cannot move forward. I think that is a major problem we have. Okay. And that has also affected our institutions. So our institutions are now very, very weak. They are not strong to withstand pressures. We continue fighting over ethnicity, where Chapter 2 of our Constitution for human development, that the nationality question in Nigeria is not an ethnic question. It's a question of how do you provide security, how do you provide human development, human security for Nigerians? That is Chapter 2. And here we are saying that chapter is not justiciable, when in other countries, they've gone beyond talking about justiciability and talking about it is important to provide for that, as provided for under Chapter 2, under the African Charter of Human and People's Rights, to which Nigeria has subscribed. All right, infrastructure decay everywhere in the country. Water and sanitation gets in most states the least amount of budgetary allocation. Education, the same thing. Health, the same thing. So what are we talking about? If we are not providing for the human development of our people, how are we surprised that there's a lot of banditry, there's kidnapping, because we have not developed our social capital. Our social capital has not been developed. Because if people don't feel that they are getting something good from their government, then they will not be committed to that government. So I think the issue is basically, one, how do we now set about managing our ethnicity in a democratic manner? That will now provide us to move from nation building to state formation.
All right, Prof. What we are emphasizing is the poor management of our diversities as a people, our ethnic, our religious, our other diversities. And Professor Madubuike, how has that impacted on the way we have also managed our politics and our developmental process?
Thank you very much. If you remember earlier, I said we must go to the beginning. In 1884, Europeans settled somewhere and divided the whole of Africa for their own good, without consultations with anybody, mixing people of diverse nationalities, diverse religious beliefs, diverse world views. Now, think, for example, how America came to be. There were only 13 countries, 13 states in America that came together and fought in 1776. Colonialism or imperialism, British imperialism, and decided not to pay taxes without representation. And they won. And they set up a system that recognized their diversity. Nigeria went there and borrowed a system called presidential system without taking into cognizance those diversities, what made America great. That's part of the fault lines, the red lines that has kept us where we are. A man called Lugard, Dietrich Lugard, came to Nigeria from another country, a soldier, and amalgamated without consultation people of diverse nationalities and imposed a worldview, a particular worldview of a particular section of this country upon the rest of us. They went on to manage the first election held in this country. Without waiting for the result to come out in 1959, they announced a winner. Even before then, we were told that the election preceding that announcement was rigged. Britain imposed on Nigeria all the vices, a cesspool of them, that has continued to undermine sovereignty. Hey, if we want Nigeria to function, we must go back to that system imposed by a foreign potentate for his own use. Nigeria was just to be a country that supplies raw materials, including human beings as raw materials for Imperial Britain. Nigeria was given an education that wasn't meant to give Nigerians the real independence. And today you find some British leaders, American leaders, wanting to recolonize Nigeria for their own benefit. Remember what a French prime minister said recently in Senegal? Sarkozy, I think is his name, when he went there about 2-3 years ago, and said that France will take all the blames for the injustices, the crimes, the misdemeanors of its administrators in colonial Senegal. But we should not expect the present generation to pay for the crimes committed by their ancestors. That bet is what we must challenge, even in Nigeria. We must remodel Nigeria. We must rebuild Nigeria to fit our own aspirations. Every other thing we are talking about, as far as I'm concerned, is like burying our head, exposing the back, and think that the problems have been solved. Those people who are talking about restructuring know what they are talking about. America built a great country after George III, who was in power at that time. But they didn't want monarchy. They wanted a strong president that was the president of the whole country. That's what they built. They didn't build a country that was with a president that ministered to a particular section of the country. So most of the leadership we have had in this country have been thrown up by sectional interests, regional interests, ethnic interests, prebendal politics. But if we restructure Nigeria and the people say this is what they want, we'll begin to make progress. Nigeria will change.
All right, Prince Adu, I'll be coming to you very shortly. When we return from this break, we'll be asking you to tell us how you think the Nigeria of our dreams and the Nigeria of the dreams of our founding fathers can be attained and achieved, how we can begin to remodel Nigeria of the dreams of the young people of Nigeria when we return. All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on this special program marking Nigeria's 61st independence anniversary. Prince Adu, let's come to you now. So many people, so many groups have been agitating and have been talking about remodeling Nigeria. What kind of remodeled Nigeria do you as an individual want to see?
To be honest, I'm maybe one of the few who really doesn't believe that, you know, there's something truly wrong. I don't think there's something truly wrong with Nigeria. We've been through how many republics? This is our 4th republic. We've tried the parliamentary system. This is the 2nd or 3rd attempt at the democratic system. I think just, you know, we're looking at the wrong thing if we keep saying we need more governors, more senators, more House of Reps. You know, restructuring, all of this. No, in my honest opinion, I don't think we need that. I think what we need is accountability. No matter the system, if your leaders are not accountable and if the people are not holding their leaders accountable, it's still going to be the same mess, you know? So I'm not of that opinion. And I'm also not of the opinion that those people who say, oh, maybe someone 100 years ago, Lord Lugard put us together without, you know, seeking our consent. There was no consent to be sought. You know, we have to be realistic with ourselves. It's not like the Nigerians 100 years ago were scholars and masters and understood, you know, what was going on in the international scheme of things. So let us be happy that we have this country. Let us be happy that this is the Nigeria we have. And let us actually just build this country. You know, it's not that difficult. If we truly believe in ourselves, if we truly believe in our nation, then let us build it. Like I said earlier, our leaders are, you know, an extraction of the people. So no matter the system you put in place in Nigeria, without Nigerians actually improving their characters, without Nigerians being patriotic, we're going to have the same issues. In the UK, for example, the Nigerians there under the parliamentary system are doing very well. They are flourishing. In the US, under the democratic system, the Nigerians there are doing extremely well. Other countries, other nations, Saudi Arabia, so many countries around the world that practice different systems have Nigerians performing. But yet in Nigeria, that's not the case. So the real issue is us. If we don't treat ourselves better, if we don't become more patriotic, if we don't treat each other like brothers and sisters, then no matter the system in place, we're going to have an issue. It's going to be a problem. So what I feel is that we should improve on the system that we have. We shouldn't always think about starting again and refreshing and refreshing. No, improve on what you have. You know, so we are a people where, for example, I'm a strong advocate for young people in politics. I think young people who are now more detribalized than ever, who have the energy, who have the gusto, should rise and take this leadership challenge on. And the simple thing here, the difference between a successful Nigeria and the Nigeria we're seeing is simple infrastructure. All you need to do is just build. If you're a minister of education, build quality. Minister of Sports, build quality sports facilities, sports centers. If you're processing centers, the issue is we focus more on policy. We focus more on talking, on English, on the paperwork, on what is wrong. Why don't we focus on what is right? Just build the simple infrastructure. So if I was minister today, I'd build top of the range schools. That's what our ministers need to do. That's what our leaders need to do. Improve on what is available. But without building on infrastructure, you're going to spend the whole time on policies, especially the social intervention and intervention policies. They don't help. Giving away free money, billions and billions and billions away on different social programs, and there's no real effect. What you need to do is build that infrastructure, build the training centers, build the institutes, build the facilities, state-of-the-art facilities that will allow young people and would allow different people the capacity to participate and be part of the Nigerian project. The issue with Nigeria right now is hunger, is poverty, you know, a lack of education. So the hatred and the ethnicity and the issues that we're talking about are not deeply rooted. They're not, you know, if you put a northern kid today and a southern kid today together, they will play with each other like nothing matters. But if you put a Palestinian child or an Israeli child together today, they will not even communicate. Therefore, it is easy to see that the problems in Nigeria are not deeply rooted. The problems in Nigeria are on the surface. It's hunger. So as long as we can build the necessary infrastructure, as long as we can put these things in place, then I believe Nigeria will be better. So government should focus on just build the roads, build the schools, the facilities that we need, put the infrastructure in place, and stop with the overemphasizing on policies, especially social intervention.
Prince Audu, are you suggesting?
Will be better, but we are on our way there.
Prince Audu, are you suggesting, for instance, that the problems or the challenges we do have, or the divisions that we seem to have, are elite-driven, and that perhaps the frailty of our institutions also contributes to this problem?
Sorry, if you can say that. I didn't get that last part. You said the frailties of our institutions.
Yes, I asked if you are suggesting that because you said that our divisions are not deep-rooted, are you suggesting, for instance, that they are probably driven by elite divisiveness and the frailty of our institutions and structures?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. You know, a lot of it is politics. A lot of it is driven by the elitist agenda, the propaganda to put people in their place so that some small group of people can remain in power. This is the issue that we face. But that is, if most people in office, if governance is about build the infrastructure needed to change the narrative, then I honestly believe things will change. You know, I don't think that we hate each other to the extent that we cannot stand each other. It's impossible. Nigerians still love Nigeria. We're, for example, on a campaign, we started a campaign called the Flag Campaign. We want to give away over 200 million flags, well, at least in our lifetime. And as we go around giving the Nigerian flag to individuals, we see the love people receive it with. So people need to live to a higher aspiration, something more than ourselves. We need to find something that so many things divide us: our religion, our ethnicity, our geographic location. But what unites us is the Nigerian flag. The Nigerian dream transcends political parties, religion, ethnicity. So if we focus on our flag, if we focus on putting Nigeria in our hearts, then I honestly believe that we were looking for.
Okay, thank you very much, Prince Audu. Prof, right here,
Yes.
given the limited time that we have left.
Yes.
Prince Audu has suggested that we need to aspire to some higher priorities at this point in time. And we do not necessarily have to continue looking back at how we came to be, but we should indeed be looking at what we want to be.
I agree with him to some extent. I was Minister of Education. He spoke about education. And I knew what I did when I became Minister of Education. If you go back to 1979, 1980, there were 13 universities in this country when I came back here to assume that position. They didn't have up to 50,000 enrollment, the total number. I came back from a university in the United States of America, Ohio State University. It had over 50,000 students on one campus. Compare it with 13 universities with less than 50,000 students. What was the matter? And then we had educationally disadvantaged areas in the country that had to compete with those from educationally non-disadvantaged states for admission. And admission was limited. The carrying capacity of the universities were limited. Who is to be blamed? But I did something. You're talking about looking forward. I did something within the period I was there. I democratized education in the real sense. I increased the number of universities in the country. I started universities of science and technology. I made it possible for the private sector, which had already been banned, from having their own universities in the country. I initiated the Open University in this country to enable those who can pay for university education. That's looking forward. Because when I came to this country, when I started in the Ministry of Education, less than 10% of Nigerians who wanted education could get it because of restrictions by the military. And I had to go to a democratic president and say, listen, this cannot work. And he said, you are the minister. Tell us what will work. And I told him what will work. And since then, the number of universities have not only expanded exponentially, more students are being absorbed. Yet, we have to key into the new knowledge economy and ICT.
Okay.
We are not doing it. As I talk to you now, there are no fiber optics in certain parts of this country to drive the ICT phenomenon. There are no bandwidths, broadbands, to drive what others are doing, what others have been doing. We are thinking about 2023, and we are saying that we cannot transmit. Hey, that's not leadership. So that's not the kind of country we can start here and talk about, and it's pure malarkey.
Professor Adeleji Nodu, your final word here. What is the kind of leadership we should be looking forward to as we go towards 2023?
No, I think to answer that specific question, I think we need to have a leadership that has a vision about where this country should be moving in the next maybe 50, 60 years. And I don't see that now. I think we are all enraptured ethnic cocoons, hiding various ethnic. I think we need a leader that will give us that vision that we need. But I also want to go back to I said earlier, which I think it is very, very important that I reemphasize them now. I agree entirely with Prince Audu that we should not talk about the magic of constitutional design. Constitutions are important, but I think beyond constitutions is the political culture that is operative in the country. And I think that political culture is really anti-democratic. And I think it has survived because the Republican spirit has not been very, very prominent in our civic life. I think we need to adopt what they call neighborhood approach to democracy, keeping our leaders on the what they call the eternal vigilance as the price of democracy. I think we've been too reticent. We should, in fact, demand democracy, and we should insist. Preaching will not help us, because that preaching will not unsettle them, will not remove them from power. But we must organize the way we organize to protect our property from marauders, because these are they are denying us our democratic rights. So I think we need to do that.
Prof, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. Our time has run out. We have spoken about democratic vigilance, and I think that message should be sinking into the hearts of very many Nigerians at this point in time. We want to thank you immensely for giving us your time this public holiday, Nigeria's 61st independence anniversary. Professor Adele Jinadu, a former member of the National Electoral Commission, joined us virtually via Zoom. Professor Ihechukwu Madubike, Nigeria's former Minister of Education. He was right here with us in the studio. Thank you so much for your time. And Prince Mona Audu also joined us virtually via Zoom. He is a politician. Thank you very much, Prince Audu, for giving us your time. And that's our program for today. Thank you for indeed sharing your time with us on this Nigeria's independence anniversary. And we wish you the very best of celebrations. Bye for now.